In this video, I give you my review of the Hercules DJControl Starlight, a controller for Serato DJ Lite and Serato DJ Pro. Find out what I think about this controller coming up. Thank you for watching PDot TV, where you'll find tips, tricks, and tutorials for DJs and music performers. Now let's get into the video. So here we have the Hercules DJControl Starlight. Now this controller is made specifically for use with Serato DJ. Now it comes with Serato DJ Lite, and if you buy a Serato DJ Pro license, you can go ahead and use it with Serato DJ Pro like I have running right here. Now, off the bat, the form factor of this controller. This is a small, travel size controller. It's literally about the same length, if you see right here, as a 13-inch MacBook Pro. So to give you an idea of the size of this thing, that makes it great for travel if you're a traveling DJ and you want something that's going to fit in your bag and give you the ability to unlock the full Serato DJ software and get controls on pretty much all the basic controls you would need to at least mix a little bit. And more importantly for me, and what I'm going to use it for and what I have been using it for, is just getting ideas out and working on different transitions and different little mini routines. This has been a godsend. Now I know Serato DJ has added the practice mode in Serato DJ Pro that lets you use Serato DJ Pro without any controller, and you get 2 decks, which is something new. I mean, people have been asking for that since Serato Scratch Live, and now we have it. And in the new beta that's come out, you actually get the ability to use Serato DJ Pro with no controller connected, with a full mixer section and crossfader if you have that extra plugin as well as a license. So that hasn't been officially released yet, so I will be reviewing that once it gets out of beta and jumps to the full release. But enough of that, back to the DJControl Starlight. So let's take a look again at this controller. Now I kind of went over the functions and the layout of this in my unboxing video, so I'll go ahead and put a card up here. If you haven't checked out that video yet, definitely check that out. But just to give you a quick overview, so just like any controller that on the market, especially Serato DJ controller, it's basically cut up into 3 sections. So you have your deck section, mixer section, and the other deck. Now, this controller, of course, because of the size, you don't get the full mixer section, but I do like the choices that they made as far as the mixer is concerned. So you have your volume control or channel control on knobs instead of faders, which makes a lot of sense to save on space. And then this knob actually has 2 purposes. So this is actually your low EQ, that's full kill. I mean, it uses the EQ inside Serato DJ, so it will be full kill. And if you touch this button right here, it switches this from a low EQ or bass EQ into the 2-pole filter. So you get your high pass filter and low pass filter. So let me go ahead and get a song playing so you can hear how that filter sounds. So. Now if I engage the filter, has a little bit of resonance, but not too bad. It's the same filter that you would find on any other of the Serato DJ controllers because they do use the filter that's built into the software. So if you're used to that sound, then you have an idea of what the filter on this sounds like. Now let's go over the pad sections. So even though there's only 2 buttons, you do get 4 modes. So you have your hot cue mode, your looping mode, you have effects control, and access to your Serato sampler. Now with the hot cues, you only get access to the first 4 hot cues, and unfortunately, even with using the shift button, you don't get access to the other 4. So if you have cue points set to 5 through 8, you're gonna have to either use your keyboard to hit that 5th one, or use your mouse and click on the last 4 cue points in the software. Now as far as effects control goes, I'll go ahead and do it on this side so it's a little bit easier to see. Notice I have the effects on the triple effect right here on Serato DJ instead of the one single effect. You have your 3 effects. Now with this, they're push button effects, so they're kind of like pad effects, kind of like you would see in Record Box DJ, where it's not latched, meaning when you hit the effect, it turns on, and once you let it go, it turns off. And notice, I really don't have control over how much of the effect is going on. It just kind of puts it at about 2 o'clock right there, as you can see. So the first cue point button or the first pad is effect 1, this is effect 2, and pad 3 would be effect 3. Now, this isn't really that useful. You can do certain things like kind of use the delay or kind of use an echo out and hold it down and move the fader over. And yes, the effects are post fader since this is a controller, so you can throw the fader back and forth, or even, you know, move the volume, and then you do get those trails from things like delay and reverb, so you can do that. But once you let the button go, it kind of just turns the effect off. So let me give you an idea of how that sounds. So I already have the track playing on this side, so let's turn the effect on. Now I have the delay on effect 2, so if I hold that, and you get that trail. Now let me do it again without letting the trail run out. So if I hold it, see, it just turns off, which is kind of not the best way to do it, I would say. So if you're wanting to do an echo out like that, you're just gonna have to kind of move the fader over and hold the effect down until the trail is done, which could be a couple of seconds, especially because you can't adjust the depth of the effect or how much of the effect is on it. So it's just something to keep in mind if you want to use the effects using the controller. Now, of course, you can just click on the effect using your mouse in the actual software, and that'll work just as well, and that'll work the way you think it would work. You know, it'll trail out, and then you can just turn it off using that way as well, and you can adjust the wet and dry using that way. Now, jumping over to the loop section, I'll do it on this side. So as you see in the software here, I have my second row of loops set to beat jump like I usually do, but the first row at the top is set to 2 beats, 4 beats, 8 beats, and 16 beats. But if you look, if I hit pad 1, it automatically jumps to a 1 beat loop. So these are hardwired to certain loop lengths. It's not gonna be the loops that you have shown on your software like other controllers do, like my Pioneer DJ SR2. It'll actually use the loops that are on the screen, but these are hardwired to certain loop lengths. So you have 1 beat, 2 beat, 4 beat, and 8 beat loops. Now, if you want to get to your other loops, you're going to have to actually click on it in the software, as these are hardwired, so you only have those 4 options. Now that's kind of limiting, but again, at this price point and at this size, and you know, just the portability of this controller, it still works out. I'm just glad they have looping at all in something this small. At least you get access to a little bit of your looping controls. Now switching over to the last mode, your sampler mode. So you only get access to your first 4 samples. So and of course, if you want to see those controls in the software, you can open them up. And they work just as you would think. Now, one thing is, even if you put this on the other side, it still only accesses the first 4. So even though there's 8 pads here in total, you can only access the first 4 slots in your sampler. Now that's kind of limiting, but I mean, if you're using Serato DJ and using the drops, usually it's the first couple that most DJs use. They're not using all of them, but if you need to access them, again, you can always access it in the software. Now we've covered the mixer section right here and the pad section. Now let's take a look at these 2 controls up here. So right here we have the master volume, and that's the master volume coming out of this 1/8 inch connector on the left side of the controller, the same side that the mini USB comes out of. On this side, we have a headphone output right here, where you can control either, you know, cueing on the left deck or the right deck, and then you have your headphone volume right here. Now, just like the P32, the other controller by Hercules that I reviewed a few weeks ago, you don't get the ability to mix between master and cue. It's just on and off. So to access that, you'd hold down Shift, and notice these 2 lights kind of turn on and off. Right here is cue master, meaning this is just hearing the master output, and right here is the cue plus the mix. So if you have a deck selected to cue up, now you'll hear this deck queuing up plus the mix. So again, you have to hold down Shift, and you only get the choice between one or the other. But for my case and what I'm using this for, I'm really just using this in my headphones, just listening to the master output, just to get an idea of different mixes. But I like that they still give you that ability. So if you need to rock a party with this, you know, you can still do it, and you can still queue up your songs using your headphones if you want, and still get the ability to at least get headphone control and get an idea of what your mix sounds like before you throw up the volume or, you know, cut in with the fader. Now, one of the most important things on a controller to me is the pitch fader, and this one's pretty good. This is actually, which is crazy enough, about the same length as the pitch fader that you would find on the Pioneer SR2. So if you're used to kind of mixing on that, you'll feel pretty at home with this one because it feels pretty similar as far as the length's concerned, and dialing in the BPM isn't really that big of a deal. So if you're used to a pitch fader of this length, you know, normal, you know, budget or mid-range controller pitch fader size, this will work just fine for you. Now, the last thing on the top of this controller is the jog wheels, I should say. And this is where I think the Hercules DJControl Starlight shines above the other controllers in this form factor. Now, the only other one at this time is the Numark DJ To Go 2, which this pretty much kind of mirrors. Some of the mixer controls are a little bit different, but the overall layout is pretty similar. But the big problem with the Numark DJ To Go 2 is the fact that if you want to scratch using the jog wheels, you can't have the deck playing, meaning you have to have it stop, and then you can access the ability to scratch. So just like now, how I have the deck stopped, I would be able to go ahead and scratch the sound that I have on the left side. So, but on the Numark, if I had the deck playing, I wouldn't be able to start and stop the deck by touch, or, you know, vinyl mode on a CDJ, kind of the similar feel. It would just act as a pitch bend on the top, which isn't that useful, especially, you know, if you're a DJ that's used to playing on CDJs and you're used to using vinyl mode and really getting in there and wanting to cut, especially on something this small. If you're, you know, you want to practice that, or if you're doing a transition where you need to drop something in, it really makes it hard because you have to use two hands and you have to scratch it in, and then you have to go ahead and hit play at the same time. So it's not really what you would do in a normal DJ situation on a normal size controller or a normal size setup. So the fact that you have full, you know, control over the actual deck, even when it's playing, is huge. Because look at this. The responsiveness is really good too. I mean, it's a very small jog wheel, so just the slightest movement gives you a lot of room on the actual, you know, how far it moves. But overall, the responsiveness is great. You know, I'm still able to cut a little bit on it. Now, of course, the size of the jog wheel makes it a little bit harder to cut. And number two, the crossfader on this. Now, the crossfader is smooth, and to control the curve, you would access that in the Serato DJ software. But unfortunately, the cut-in time is pretty far. So if you're thinking of like getting some cuts in, like real hardcore cuts, you know, you're doing your crab scratches and your different other technical scratches, you're not going to be able to do them as quickly on this unless you do a little bit of modification. So let me go ahead and bring this sample back, and I'll give you an idea of what I mean about by that long cut-in time. So if I move this, notice I have to move it that far, all the way, you know, past this first line before the sound cuts in. Where on a crossfader like my Rain 72, I can move it just the slightest bit and the song cuts in. So that's something to keep in mind. I mean, other workarounds is I'm sure you could, you know, maybe tape down something right here to kind of, you know, give a bumper so the fader doesn't have to travel as far. That might be something I'm gonna look into doing just to see if I can improve the cut performance on this. But at least for now, you know, you can cut a little bit. And more importantly than the crossfader feel and the cut-in time, for something like this, I'm more worried about the responsiveness of the jog wheel, as well as the ability to use it while the deck is playing, which, you know, thankfully, this controller has great response time on the jog wheel, and it gives you the ability to go ahead and cut and use the jog wheel in vinyl mode without having to, you know, pause and stop the deck like you would have to do on the Numark DJ To Go 2. Now that we've covered pretty much all the controls in the top of this controller, that leaves one final thing, and that's the bottom of this controller, and why this thing is called the DJControl Starlight. So as you can see, there's lights on the bottom of this controller to give it a party kind of vibe. So if I play this deck, let me turn down the volume. Go ahead and play this. Notice the lights are going, and if I stop, the lights stop. And if I start playing something on this side, the lights will start on this side. And you know, you kind of get a party gun going, you get some nice lights going on. But Thankfully, you do have control over the lighting controls and what these can do and the ability to turn them on and off in the software. So there's actually a couple of different lighting modes where you can have it, actually kind of correspond to the EQ, or if a song's playing, it'll kind of pulse to the beat. But for the most part, when I use this thing, I turn the lights off. I mean, I'm not really trying to be that flashy, especially I recently took a trip to New York and I was using this on a plane, and it was a red-eye flight, and I didn't need these things going and pumping along while I was on that flight and everybody was sleeping. So I went ahead and turned those off, and this just became a regular plain Jane controller. Of course there's lights on the top, but at least they're not flashing, and at least they're not popping out of the sides, because the whole bottom of this is a clear plastic, so you can see the lights from the front, from the sides, from the back. So if you like the lights, you can have them on. If you don't like the lights and want to be more low-key, that control is in the software, in the settings, so real easy. You can just click one click and they're on and off, or you can click around and change the modes of lights super quick as well. So overall, what do I think of this thing? Well, I was really thinking about getting a DJ to go to for a while now, especially seeing people like the homies Miles Medina and DJ Dynamics, get to work on that DJ to go to. But the number one thing that really kept me from getting it was the fact that the jog wheels didn't work in a vinyl mode, where you'd have to have the deck stop to actually get scratch control. And I was really hoping that this DJControl Starlight gave you that vinyl mode control, and it did. So in my opinion, this is a way better controller, at least for what I need to do and what I want to use it for. It gives me the ability to access the decks in Serato DJ and really mix using a crossfader, using jog wheels as well as a pitch fader, and mix manually, so I can work while I'm traveling or if I'm on the go. And the second reason to carry this thing is the fact that it's a great backup controller. Now, because of the size of this thing, you can really just throw it in your DJ bag and really not have to think about it and not have to worry, and just know it's there. If you've ever run into an issue where maybe the Serato box isn't working, or maybe your computer can't connect to it because of a driver issue, which I've run into with other DJs plenty of times, and we'd have to scramble and download new drivers or install new drivers or reinstall Serato just to get their stuff working. If you had something like this that works because it's in your bag and you've tested it, all you have to do is just get an aux cable, plug the output into this, into a spare channel in the mixer, or the auxiliary input in the mixer, and you can start mixing. You don't have to miss a beat. You don't have to worry about having to mess with the software and reinstalling stuff. It's a great backup option. Or in the case of hardware completely crapping out, like a Serato box or something like that, again, having this in your bag, and because this is a whole DJ controller where it's not just a controller, there's an audio interface in this. You do get the ability to have a headphone output as well, so you can really mix on this thing if you need to. And just being able to take this and plug it into one channel in the mixer and getting 2-deck control is a huge plus. And this is gonna stay in my bag from now on just because of that fact. Because if I ever run into any issues, I know I can just pull this out of my bag with my aux cable that stays in my bag as well, and get to work without having to miss a beat, especially if you're going to a new venue and you run into issues with their hardware and you don't want to upset the booker, upset the management. You can just pull this out, start working right away, and just get the job done, get your gig done, and still perform and get the job done. So that's my review of the Hercules DJControl Starlight. So question of the day, what do you think about the Control Starlight and other DJ controllers in this form factor? Go leave that down in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, if you found this video useful, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, go ahead and click right here to subscribe to this channel. Or if you'd like to watch more content, go ahead and click on that video right there. And thank you for watching PDot TV, where you'll find tips, tricks, and tutorials for DJs and music performers. See you next time.